Well, I think the most important thing these days about being a graphic designer is marketing and promotion, because it used to be that you just needed to set up a design agency and then people would ring you because they knew they needed one. Whereas now you need to be out there and promoting yourself actively. But the good news is it's basically free or very low cost because of the internet. So every student who wants to be either a freelance designer or work for a design studio, they need to have an online web presence. I would recommend getting your name. So it might be that you have a studio name as well, but I think that, unless you're called John Smith, I think you should have your first name and second name .com or .com.au if it's available. And even if you're not ready to build a website yet, they're only about $7 to actually register the name. So I would register the name as soon as you can and then just sit on it until you're ready to build a website. Building your own website doesn't have to be difficult these days. There are many online kind of web presence places that you can put your website, but also having your own domain name and hosting is a great idea if you're web savvy. I have a website and I just built it with WordPress. So I can code a website from scratch, but I choose to make my folio out of WordPress because it makes it much easier to upload the images as I do them. So it's very important to keep your online presence current so that every time you do a project, it should just be quite easy to upload a thumbnail, upload a series of images, and keep your website fresh and current and always putting your newest project first. There are online folios that you can use as well. So Behance is an international one. It's hosted out of America, but a lot of people put their work up on Behance. It's a great place to be found by bloggers. So other people who run design blogs, for example, they might not necessarily find your website, but they will trawl through Behance looking for the latest and greatest in photography or graphic design or typography or whatever it is. And so many different creative people put their work up on Behance. And there's also the ability to comment on your work and also other people's work and to like it or appreciate it. So it's sort of similar to Facebook in that way that people can let you know if they're approving or enjoying something, and it will get ignored if they don't think it's that good. So it's always good to get your friends to go there and give some feedback and comment. And you never know, you might get found by Typography Served or something like that and put up. And all of a sudden your visits to your work will skyrocket. So Behance is very good for that reason. In Australia, we also have something called The Loop. They really want students to get on board with a free website and just put their work up there. And they're trying to get people who are employers to actually look through the Loop folios and try and get some work for the students. So definitely, because both Behance and the Loop are free and they're easy to upload, I would recommend that you should definitely have a presence on both of those places. What you're aiming for is if somebody Googles your name, you should appear as the first page. So just having your own website will give you the first top result, you hope. Unless you're called Brad Pitt, then obviously you're in a bit of trouble. But if if your name is unique enough in the marketplace, then sure enough your website will come up first. But it's nice if you're also second, third, fourth and fifth. And unfortunately your Facebook profile tends to be first or second, and that's not necessarily what you want prospective employers to be looking at. So if you can push your Facebook profile down with other profiles, that's always a good idea. So Behance, The Loop. There are other websites that you can apply to be a part of. So Cargo Collective, for example, is one of those. It doesn't accept everybody. You have to have a work of a certain standard and you apply to be accepted by Cargo Collective. But again, it's an online folio. People are going to look through it. Creative Finder, I think, is another one, which again, you have to be accepted to. The same with Dragonfly. Then promoting your work, sending your work to bloggers, sending your work to online websites where people actually feature student work, and then also once you graduate and become a designer, it's good to still be featured. So it's always an exciting day for me if I get an email and a blog from around the world has said that they featured one of my pieces on their website. It always means that there's going to be a spike in traffic, which is nice. You can allow those things to happen naturally, but it's always a good idea to actively target people who you really like their work and you know that their blogs are popular and well visited. It's a good idea to just maybe send them an email with 1 or 2 images every time you do a new project and just see if they're interested in featuring your work. And they might not necessarily do it the first time you send it to them, but once they realise that you're continuing to produce good work, they might do a little feature on you. And also just keeping a blog yourself, so actually, doing a design blog where you share information with other people, and that could be a good way to get your work noticed as well. So in terms of social media and how to use it for online networking, Probably the most important one is Twitter. I like to describe it as a river, and it's flowing past you, and you can choose to look into the river and see what's happening at that particular time. But, to actually sit there and spend all day looking at it is not how you use Twitter. The main reason for using Twitter is that Google finds it very valuable in terms of referencing a backlink to a website. So every time you post something to your folio, you should probably post a link to Twitter and tell them about it. Mainly because Google then registers that as a backlink and will actually, it'll enhance your Google search rankings. In terms of business networking, LinkedIn is probably the best version for that. So LinkedIn is like a Facebook for businesses. And so it's very good because you can connect with people that might not want to connect with you on Facebook, but because LinkedIn is for businesses, they may be more inclined to add you to their connections. It's also very good because there are groups on LinkedIn where you can have discussions about, graphic design, typography, copyright, all of those kinds of things are going on in online discussion groups at LinkedIn all the time these days. And so you can pop in there and ask some questions, or if you're an industry professional, you can answer some questions. And that's a very good way to kind of make connections with people that you're not necessarily talking to face to face, but it's a good way to make contact with them. The other thing to remember is if you're applying for a job and you only have 4 connections on your LinkedIn and someone else is applying for the same job and they have 250 connections on their LinkedIn, I have heard of cases where employers have chosen the people who are more networked than the other one with maybe 4. So that's something to think about, is to actually make some valuable connections and just build them up over time. I mean, don't go out there and try and connect with people that you don't know. Actually, if you meet someone at a conference or you talk to somebody at an industry presentation or you're a networking function, then just connecting with them on LinkedIn is a really good idea. It shows professionalism. You should also make sure that you do behave professionally on LinkedIn, because obviously if you link your Twitter feed or something to your LinkedIn and you're talking about something over here and not realizing that it's showing up over here, then that's something to be aware of, because I have heard of cases where people are saying inflammatory things on Twitter and they come up in their LinkedIn feed, which is not very good. There is a way to measure your sphere of social influence, and it's a website called Clout. And what that does is it looks at your LinkedIn, it looks at your Twitter, it looks at Facebook, it looks at all of the other online social networks, and it measures how much of a sphere of influence you have over other people, but also what you're influential in terms of topics. And it also looks at who influences you. And so, again, that's another way when people are sort of Googling your name, being interviewed for a job, for example, Clout will actually give a reading or a record in terms of the number of people that you're influencing and the topics that you're influential about. So it's a new website, and it seems to be gaining a lot of popularity, and it seems to be well respected as being accurate information. Another website that started off quite recently but has got very popular in a very short amount of time is Pinterest. And the way that Pinterest works is it's essentially an online pin board. So if you're interested in something, you can pin it, and so it actually grabs a visual snippet of the thing that you liked the look of. And so you can actually use it in the same way that we used to use traditional mood boards. So if you're actually presenting to a client, you can pin a whole bunch of images into Pinterest and actually show them that board and show them that that's the mood or style of something you're looking for. I found that pinning my work into Pinterest, so I don't just use it for my work, I have my other boards, but I'll put my own work in there. And I find that I get a lot of visitors to my website from Pinterest. So it's actually turning into a very good driver of traffic to my work. And a lot of my work has been shared very freely on Pinterest. So you've got to be careful in terms of copyright infringement, making sure that your name is attributed to the work that is getting out there and shared. But I do know that the benefits of visitors to my website who are interested in seeing more work from me, from the piece that they've seen on Pinterest, I'm actually getting a huge amount of traffic from there at the moment. So it's good to promote yourself on Pinterest, but it's also a good tool for a graphic designer to use to actually collect images together that they're interested in.